Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Run the Nation right here. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Tuesday evening. That's what it is. Okay, so we got a lot of good stories today. Some are very, very heavy. We're going to talk about Sandra Bland at the end of the show, near the end of the hour. We also have Donald Trump's newest pardon. That super heavy story. We'll talk about that. First, we've got a couple of fun stories. For example, Donald Trump on the Mueller testimony. That's fun. And what was it? There is a great hashtag going around about Stephen Mnuchin. I will explain what that is and why, and whether or not something gets in trouble or somebody gets in trouble. Fun times. Then we also have Mike Pompeo on climate change. Fun. So, interesting stories. Again, some light, some pretty heavy. So it's a little bit of a heavy day today. But we'll talk about that stuff because I think it's really important to know what's going on. So, before I do. So there's a few people that are a little concerned about the announcement that I planned to make earlier or later on this week that I talked about yesterday. Don't worry, guys. It's going to be okay. I might as well just tell you guys now. Next week, we're going to be off next week. I'm moving. That's all. So no shows for a week, roughly, until we get set back up. That's all. So I figured you guys aren't going to like it because there's not going to be shows for 5 days, right? So that's in between, the week of the third, between the days Monday the 13th and Friday the 17th. So there will be no shows throughout that week period of time. And hopefully we'll have everything back up starting on the 20th to, in the new studio. So basically, we're moving about an hour away, someplace different. I'll have a little bit more room to work with the studio, but again, it'll take some time to get it set up and all the internet setup and utilities, etc. So that's what's going on here. And plus, I'm going to take that time while I'm moving to get a couple of days of maybe vacation, or at least it'll feel like a vacation. So it's as close to someone in the working class can get to a vacation is taking time off while you're also trying to move your house. Okay, so there it is. So no worries, guys. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Okay, funny thing is that we're moving to a place that's actually cheaper. So we're actually going to save money compared to where we live now, which is insanity. The amount of rent that we pay. So, good things all around. All right, anyway. Thank you. No worries. Like I said, everybody can calm down now. All right. Moving on. So, before I get into today's show, I want to thank a few patrons. Let's thank Kevin Broom, Jane Ferry, Khalid Nixon, Nathan, Ramiro Lopez, Ken Jones, and Pam Ferguson. So thank you to those patrons. Patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can sign up to support the show. So please do that. I'm losing like a week's worth of work too, which sucks. Because I'm like, oh man, I'm not gonna get money for those days because I'm not doing shows. So that's gonna suck horribly. So hopefully, I'll get some extra time while I'm not moving to maybe do a live stream or two if I see something like really important going on or if I get some time. So I'm going to be away, but I'm not going to be I can't peel myself away because I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be making any money. So, terrible. But I'll be doing that anyway. So it's like half good, half terrible. Anyway. Patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can support the show. Channel memberships, by the way, Danielle Baker is the newest channel member. So We're up to 43 channel members. You guys are awesome. And of course, we've got 300 patrons. Also amazing. So thank you so much for the support. All right. And as usual, if you want us to continue to grow and to get better, patreon.com/TYTNation is pretty much the only thing that I can say, because that has allowed us to continue to grow. But we will, as always, want to be funded strictly by members and not have to worry about ads and demonetization and ridiculous crap like that. We just want to do our jobs. I just want to do my job and not have to worry about that stuff. All right. Anyway, that said, let's dive into the news. All right. Okay. Now the Mueller report continues to haunt President Trump as the House has asked Mueller to testify after William Barr's own testimony to the Senate turned out to be not enough for congressional Democrats. Now, recently the president allowed his thoughts to be known thanks to a Monday morning tweet storm in which he accused Democrats of not only committing their own crimes, which is hilarious, but also of not just Senate, but congressional Democrats, of wanting a do-over in the Mueller probe. A do-over? All right, well, that's interesting. Now, according to the Associated Press, anxiety about Mueller's testimony has been building up with Trump since the idea of him going before Congress was announced. So now the AP notes that, quote, following Attorney General William Barr's congressional testimony last week, Trump apparently stewed for days about the media coverage that Mueller would get if he testified, especially considering that he believes the special counsel has been unfairly lionized by the press over the past 2 years. Now that, of course, relates to Donald Trump saying, you know what, I should get 2 more free years of my presidency. Wait, no, that's not how that works. I know what he's trying to say. He's like, oh, I was cheated out of 2 years because we talked about the Mueller stuff and the Mueller investigation. I was cheated out of 2 years of my presidency. Well, okay, if we're going to go that way, then I guess we should go back and retroactively give Bill Clinton another extra year because of the, Lewinsky investigation. No, that's preposterous. It's ridiculous. And it's stupid. And it's not only that, but unconstitutional, right? As we have something called term limits. Nonetheless, that's, of course, related to this. But now he thinks, well, look, I lost 2 years of my presidency, which, by the way, Republicans had full control of Congress, the House and the Senate, right, during that period. So who's asking for a do-over here? I think it's President Trump. Anyway, more. Trump also reportedly worries that Mueller's testimony would be a repeat of the testimony of his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, which dominated the news as Trump was holding a summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. The president also feared that Americans would be captivated by seeing Mueller speak, AP reports, adding that there is a sense in the White House that Mueller's testimony would add weight to some of the damaging information in his report. That's funny, right? Here's Trump saying, or worrying apparently that, oh my God, they'd be captivated by hearing Mueller speak. No, really, at this point in time, I think most Americans would be captivated by anybody who can put together complete sentences. I'm just saying, right? But seriously, I thought this was a complete exoneration, total exoneration. Donald Trump kept saying that over and over again about this report. So now Mueller has gotten asked to come in front of Congress and talk about the report, talk about his findings, and now Trump's suddenly super nervous. I mean, why did he express a desire to keep Mueller from testifying from the report days before he sent those tweets, basically begging him not to go in front of Congress? Now, look, maybe he believes that he's going to get that it's going to get a ton of press, and I can't disagree with that. I think it would get a ton of press, and maybe that's what bothers him the most. Nobody's paying attention to me. Pay attention to me. Give me the kudos, give me the accolades that I so desperately desire because daddy never gave them to me before. I don't know. I mean, look, it's not as if he doesn't have, according to some of his allies, a very bad sense of danger. So he doesn't know that maybe Mueller talking to Congress might lead to something. I don't know. I mean, what could it lead to? Possibly. Well, maybe it could move public opinion in favor of impeachment. That is possible. But he probably thinks, no, like he's not thinking about that if he thinks, right? No, he's probably thinking, it's going to get such good ratings. People want to watch Mueller. It's good TV for the Trump haters. Ah, yeah. And again, on that, I guess he's not wrong, but he's only thinking about the TV ratings, right? I mean, all it would take, I think, maybe is good testimony and an example of Donald Trump's criminality to maybe move public opinion. And if that happens, there is a small chance, very small chance, that Pelosi might change her mind on impeachment, although very, very small. I think infinitesimally, right? Because I forget the quote that Pelosi had said earlier. I think it was it was a Hill article. Basically, yes, that said that, oh, Trump's goading me into impeachment, and that's why we're not going to do impeachment. No. What you're saying here, Pelosi, then is that Donald Trump is goading you into impeachment by continuing to be criminal and doing crimes. That doesn't make any sense. So her solution to that is, let's just not do anything while he continues to do crime. Yeah. I know. But look, these are the reasons why Pelosi doesn't back impeachment, right? Number one, right now it doesn't poll well. Okay, fair enough. Most of the country right now is against impeachment. In fact, there's a recent poll that came out. Half of all Republicans think that the Mueller report exonerated President Trump completely, right? So you're not getting that majority of Americans support at this point. Independents are especially against it, right? But number two, and I think most importantly here, is Pelosi, and she admitted it herself, she raises good money off Donald Trump. When you get him impeached, and then they find evidence of criminality, and somehow, by a miracle, Republicans vote against that, vote in favor of removal based on the findings, well, then she's not going to be able to raise money off Donald Trump. But here's the thing. Here's the weird thing about that, right? So if Mueller speaks and he lays out the case that, no, here's why the Democrats should impeach, and it's a compelling case, and it moves public opinion more towards impeachment, well, then Nancy Pelosi could just raise money off that. I mean, look, I just solved that problem. That's how it could work out. But of course, Nancy Pelosi, apparently some, two-bit YouTuber just strategized better than Nancy Pelosi. I mean, no, she's a master legislator, Jeff. You have to understand. Master legislator. Right. Okay. No, this is why the Democrats suck. But again, look, as far as the article is concerned, speculation, right? But I'm just saying, I think that Mueller's testimony could be a little bit more damaging than in even what Donald Trump thinks is possible. Which makes it curious to me, by the way, that William Barr has not changed his view that Mueller should be allowed to testify. I mean, maybe he doesn't see it as a threat. Maybe the entire, Trump orbit is filled with hubris. I don't know. Or maybe he's got something up his sleeve. Who knows? But what we do know is that, guess what? There might be some testimony that happens next week. Democrats have right now agreed with Mueller on a tentative day of May 15th for Mueller possibly testifying before the House. So, I guess we'll have to see what happens then. It should be very interesting. Okay. So let's get into Donald Trump's taxes. I mean, I wish we could get into Donald Trump's taxes for real, but we'll just have to settle for talking about them. All right. Anyway, moving on. Let me change the sidebar here real quick. So Stephen Mnuchin is playing a game of political chicken by refusing to release Donald Trump's taxes to House Democrats. Now, I will remind you that these Democrats did not ask nicely. They basically said, you need to hand these over, and you need to hand them over now. All right, well, now, Mnuchin had recently sent a letter to House Democrats claiming that after consulting with the Justice Department, he had determined that the House Ways and Means Committee's request for 6 years' worth of the president's tax returns, quote, lacks a legitimate legislative purpose. Basically, that's his way of saying, nope, you are not going to have it. Awesome. By awesome, I mean, what's going to happen to Steve Mnuchin? We'll get into that, and that will be awesome. Now, it's funny that he says, oh, well, there's no legitimate purpose here. Well, okay, well, how about the numerous congressional investigations into Donald Trump's finances, which could show that he is, in a way, compromised towards some of the debts that he owes, or has been part of criminal activity involving money laundering, emoluments, etc. I mean, you know. Now, the issue here, aside from Trump hiding whatever is in his taxes, is what will happen to Stephen Mnuchin for actually doing that. The law is pretty clear here. It expressly states that upon written request from the chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means of the House of Representatives, the chairman of the Committee on Finance of the Senate, or the chairman of the Joint Committee on Taxation, the secretary, shall furnish such committee with any return or return information specified in such request. Well, the House did ask for those returns. They subpoenaed Mnuchin, and Mnuchin, as I told you, just gave a fat FU. They don't care. So, now where are they? Where are they? Well, part of Mnuchin's defense is, well, I'm not going to release them. Not only do they have no legitimate legislative purpose, but they also violate Donald Trump's vaunted privacy. Privacy. Okay, well, now, wait a minute here. So, that means that any sort of document that has any sort of personal information cannot be requested by Congress because, hey man, it violates my personal information. You can't have it. You can't have it. I have my right to privacy. I mean, old tax returns have private information in it. Apparently, that has already been adjudicated. According to the Washington Post, Congress previously decided by statute that concerns about privacy are secondary to the House's oversight responsibilities. Moreover, it's not up to Mnuchin, i.e. Trump, to decide what constitutes a legitimate purpose. So, from that, it's pretty simple to surmise that the secretary is attempting to protect his boss, Donald Trump, from embarrassment and conceal potential conflicts of interest and possible improper receipt of foreign emoluments. Now, we don't know for sure if that's the case. There's a pretty clear way to figure that one out. Release the returns. That's it. Release the returns. All this blocking makes me think that there is something going on. And there are experts out there that agree. Robert Reich tweeted out, AG Barr's failure to comply with subpoena is bad enough. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin's failure to comply with a law, one that explicitly authorized the House to obtain a taxpayer's return, is even worse. The House must immediately sue Mnuchin. No one is above the law. And finally, Representative Ted Lieu also says the Democrats' request for President Trump's tax returns is, quote, black letter law, saying that it's plain as day, and I don't see how Steve Mnuchin can come to this decision to simply violate the law. Congress must litigate this and we will win that court case. So now, what's fun about this is not only, of course, experts weighing in on social media, but also regular people. Here you have the new hashtag, Lock Mnuchin Up. Lock him up. Lock him up. That's fun. Now, those of you who are screaming, no, what are you doing? Don't talk about locking him up. But wait, imagine if Hillary Clinton did the same thing. If she was hiding her tax returns or the tax returns of someone else. I mean, come on. They already called to lock her up over less. Just saying. But look, will anything actually happen to Mnuchin? I don't know. I think there's doubt that Mnuchin will actually be held in contempt or go to jail. Powerful people almost never get held accountable, even if they break the law. So, but now, maybe there's other things could happen. Maybe you could find, right? Last month, legal experts told Roll Call that failure to comply with a congressional subpoena could lead the secretary being held in contempt, hit with daily fines, or even jail time. Now, could he get fined? Probably. But you never know, right? George K. Yin, a professor at the University of Virginia Law School and former chief of staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation, that is one of the committees that can subpoena and get tax records, said this: to me, the person who is most vulnerable to this is Mnuchin, because, of course, the statute directs Mnuchin to do something. So if he doesn't comply, then he's the one in violation, which, of course, is the way President Trump prefers everything. Well, let's be fair about that. President Trump, look, if something happens to Mnuchin, for Mnuchin protecting Trump's taxes, I don't know if that's going to be enough for Trump to say, oh, he is being supremely loyal to me, and I shall do what I can to protect him. Or if he'll just be like, whatever, dude, that's your problem now. Ha ha, sucker. You actually protected me. Who knows with Donald Trump, right? Now, Yin continues. He says the statute is very clear and seems like very strong support for what Committee Chairman Richard Neal is trying to do. I think he obviously needs to think very seriously about that, and him referring, of course, to Mnuchin. So he could theoretically get into some major trouble over this. William Olden McDaniel Jr., an attorney with Ballard Smart LLP, who has represented officials in both Democratic and Republican administrations, also told Roll Call that after finding Mnuchin in contempt, the House could then apply to a court to enforce that contempt order by requiring him to turn over or suffer some sort of coercive penalty, either fines or putting someone in jail until they comply. Again, that would be fun. I don't think it'll happen because, again, I think Donald Trump has spent the last near 4 years putting loyalists into positions of power to then protect him. And so I'm very, very cynical. However, Mnuchin must not be too worried as he continues to refuse to hand over those tax returns. Now, there is one more piece that could explain his refusal, and that's the fact that Trump has a loyalist inside the IRS. Now, the president directly requested earlier this year that Mitch McConnell prioritize a confirmation vote for a man named Michael Desmond. Right? Now, Michael Desmond would be the chief counsel of the IRS. Now, the New York Times reported this last month. Quote, Desmond reportedly advised the Trump Organization on tax issues and worked with its current tax counsels. He currently reports directly to the IRS Commissioner and Treasury General Counsel, and per the IRS website, is in charge of all matters pertaining to the interpretation, administration, and enforcement of the IRS code, as well as all other legal matters. Simply put, if you wanted somebody to help you hide your tax information from the government, well, this guy would be a pretty good choice. He'd be a pretty good person to have on your side. So think about that when you think about the possibility of Mnuchin going to jail. Okay. So, we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about an Iraqi prisoner. Someone who actually gotten in trouble for murdering an Iraqi prisoner. What happened to him? Very, very heavy stuff. So we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll tackle that story. We'll stay right here. I'll read some comments and things after we come back from the break. So stay right here on the Nation. Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Apparently, according to Twitter, there is another active shooter. So, let me look at some of the details here. But yeah, another active shooter being reported at the STEM School Highlands Ranch in Douglas County, Colorado. So, great. Two suspects were apparently in custody. And so yeah, here we go. More attempts at school shootings. So of course, another day in America. Literally another Tuesday. Wonderful. Okay. That's it. Let's get to some comments here from you guys. Star Check with the super chat says, "Great news in the move. May it go smooth and peaceful. Congrats. I'll be here when you get back. I appreciate that." And also says, "Don't let the movers wreck your new camera." I wish I could afford movers. I really do. So I went and priced movers. It's a lot of money. I'm like, are you kidding? Who can afford that? I certainly can't. So I will be taking my own chances, moving everything myself, which is going to suck. But I did buy a handcart for it, so, and some bungee straps. So best of luck, right? Best of luck. And like I said, we'll be starting that next week. Okay. One more member comment here on Donald Trump wanting an extra 2 years. So an extra 2 years of playing golf, watching Fox News, and hate tweeting on the taxpayer's dime. Yeah, pretty much. Don't forget executive time. Lots and lots of executive time, as well as meetings, high-profile meetings at his resorts, which, of course, goes right back into his pocket. And Lee Cox, non-member, says this: "I want to focus on Bernie beating the least popular president in modern American history in a free and open election." So that's why apparently he's making the case against impeachment. Yeah, okay, look, I get that sentiment. I do. I disagree with you for one reason. We have to hold the president accountable. It doesn't matter. Like, that's the Democrat strategy, unfortunately. It's the same one that you're talking about, Lee, except that replace Bernie with somebody like Biden or Kamala Harris, which Kamala Harris, by the way, is the banker's choice. So that's who the banks want the most. So that whole strategy is, well, that's okay. Trump's bad, but we're just going to run on how Trump's bad and not do anything about his criminality. We're going to let the voters have a referendum on whether or not they want to put the criminal back in the White House for an extra 4 years. Well, that's not how it should work. If a president commits a crime, he or she should get held accountable for doing said crime. So I think you and I kind of disagree on that. Now, if he wasn't a criminal, well, then it'd be different. It'd be massively different. Or if the charges, whatever, were BS, I would say the same thing. But I don't necessarily agree with you on this one. But thank you for chiming in anyway. See, it's good to have differing viewpoints on here, and I appreciate that. And there's a good debate that can be had on it. Anyway, moving on, let's go into heavy story number one of the day. But before we do, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. All right. Okay. Now, progressive and anti-war activists are speaking out after President Trump granted a pardon to an American soldier convicted of murdering an Iraqi prisoner back in 2008. Now, this is Lieutenant Michael Behenna, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison back in 2009 for the murder of Ali Mansour. Now, it's important to note that he is actually out of prison. He's been on parole since 2014. Nonetheless, he got a complete and full presidential pardon for that murder. So now, according to the New York Times, who reported on this, Bahena and his unit had believed that Mansour was the architect of an attack that killed 2 people in his unit. Now, he did not have any evidence of that, that Mansour was involved, but hey, he was Muslim, and so he had to have been guilty of something, right? They found him, by the way, and then disobeyed direct orders by taking him to a remote part of the Iraqi desert where he was interrogated, tortured, and then shot and killed. So now, the extent of what Bahena had done, had been convicted of doing, is laid out by Qasim Rashid, who said Bahena was ordered to release an innocent Iraqi man that they had no evidence to hold. So they went and they got him and they held him against orders of the superiors. And Bahena instead dragged him under a bridge, stripped him naked, tortured him, and then when that was over, shot him, killed him, and then burned the body by setting a grenade off under his corpse. And of course, Donald Trump had just given him a presidential pardon. This is a guy, remember, who, when the Central Park Five was pardoned, right, found to have not done the crime, Donald Trump said, I don't care, they're guilty anyway, keep them in prison, execute them. He once ran a full-page ad saying we should execute the Central Park Five. And yet he gives a pardon to somebody who murdered somebody who they had no proof had committed a crime because they were Muslim. Well, they must be guilty of something, right? Now, what happened to Mansour is brutal in every sense of the word. That's literally what ISIS would do to people. They didn't know he was the architect of the attack. And even if he was, we have laws on how to deal with people who, had committed terrorism. I mean, we don't or we shouldn't condone murder or torture, but unfortunately in this country, which is run by a neo-fascist, basically, or a wannabe fascist, apparently we do. I mean, look at the CIA director, Gina Haspel. Gina Haspel ran some of the black sites in Iraq that tortured people. Now, this pardon, according to Hina Shamsi, director of the ECO's National Security Project, said this, quote, "The pardon is a presidential endorsement of a murder that violated the military's own code of justice." Now, again, this was the military saying, no, you violated direct orders and you killed someone without evidence because you believed or you thought that he was guilty of an attack. Now, she continued, she says, "The military appeals court found Bahena disobeyed orders, became the aggressor against his prisoner, and had no justification for killing a naked, unarmed Iraqi man in the desert." Now, but it gets worse, right? So now look, I could have a little bit of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, for somebody who lost his friends to a terrorist attack, to an IED, right? And in his grief, maybe made terrible decisions and has regret, right? Except that in this case, it's different. Bahena had no regrets. In court filings reviewed by the New York Times, Bahena allegedly said that he would do it again and would not feel bad about it because, hey man, well, I lost 2 of my own and I don't care. I don't care if he maybe didn't do it. I think he did, but maybe he didn't. I don't care. He's Muslim. He's a brown guy. So he must be a terrorist. Now, again, he killed somebody who was at that point innocent. We didn't prove that he had done anything wrong. And you know what's funny is that they also don't get it. Ironically, the right-wingers who pushed for the release of this guy, right? This is how you get more terrorism. And they don't get it. The right wing championed Bahena's pardon. In fact, here's another Afghanistan veteran named Nate Bethia who pointed this out on Twitter. He said, quote, if I recall correctly, Bahena murdered the detainee because despite having zero evidence, he was convinced the guy had detonated an IED that killed soldiers in his platoon. So basically, he murdered someone because he felt like it, and Trump pardoned him to sate his base of nihilist racists. Yeah. He also said all Republicans agree with this because all Republicans think that no American soldier should go to jail for murdering someone overseas. They don't think it counts as murder. And that's about the most damning part of this, right? And let me add on to that. They don't think that some of these people overseas are actually human beings at all. And don't forget, we were the aggressors in Afghanistan and Iraq. We invaded Afghanistan, by the way, originally to look for bin Laden because of 9/11, right? And then somehow, looking for bin Laden turned into regime change, which, by the way, failed miserably. Afghanistan is complete 100% failure. It cost the lives of Americans and innocent Afghans. And by the way, we did not win that conflict. The Taliban is now getting back into power. They've actually made a comeback. And guess what? Now we're actually discussing peace with the Taliban. So what was literally the point? What's the point? Bin Laden, by the way, ended up in Pakistan of all places. Why did we have to launch a regime change war when there was one special ops team that was enough to take down bin Laden? Why? Well, the whole reason, of course, is to feed the war machine, which, by the way, ends up chewing up people, both, like Bahena and Ali Mansour. It chews them up and it spits them out, and it creates more terrorism. This kind of thing wouldn't happen if we didn't champion constant warfare. And part of war means dehumanizing the other. And we have done that very, very well here in America when it comes to Muslims. That's why the right wing has no problems with killing people who could be innocent. Because to them, well, you're a Muslim. There's no way you're innocent. And then they wonder, why do they hate us? Or they say they hate us because they hate us. They're not human to them. It doesn't matter. He's a Muslim. He's the terrorist anyway. Let's just murder him and get him out of the way. They're not human. They're not human. And that's why Sean King said this in a tweet. This pardon from Trump is just another part of his white supremacy tour. It's his way of saying that when a white man kills a Muslim, even if he disobeys orders and is convicted of murder, that the Muslim somehow deserves it and that the white man deserves a break/sympathy. It's not a stretch to see that, by the way, from somebody who saw good people on both sides of Charlottesville, who campaigned on and attempted to ban Muslims from the country, who in his first campaign speech called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He agrees with white supremacy. Look, the only Muslims that Trump likes are rich Saudis who end up buying stuff from him. That's all. Everyone else is a dangerous terrorist. But there's one more thing that's important here that I want to mention, and that's the Atlantic's. That comes from the Atlantic's Adam Serwer. Now, he said that the pardon could have unintended consequences for our soldiers in the field. He said that by eroding the rules of engagement and endorsing the murder of prisoners, Trump could be putting U.S. service members in danger. Why? It's because, well, what happens when you have an American soldier that's captured? They're going to look at what we did and say, well, here we go. We're just going to do the same thing to them that they did to us. Not only that, but again, the whole thing is that this will end up creating more terrorism by turning America into the things that they say that we are: murderers, killers, invaders, infidels. This helps terrorists recruit more people. But again, the right wing doesn't get it, whether they get it because they don't want to get it or they're just that ignorant. But here, I want to go to one more quote here from Serwer says, the point of this, though, like the Arpaio pardon, is to send a message that certain groups of people simply have no rights that the U.S. government is bound to respect. And look, that's why anti-Muslim right-wingers will continue to defend this war criminal and others like him. Because to them, there is no worse crime than being a Muslim. Okay. Okay. Moving on. No, no, no. Let's go to Sandra Bland. Okay. No, new video has been released in the case of Sandra Bland. Now, Sandra Bland was arrested back in 2015 for failing to signal a lane change and was ultimately arrested by former trooper Brian Encinia. Now, Bland, who was only 28 at the time, was found dead 3 days later in her Waller County jail cell near Houston, Texas. Her death was ruled a suicide, but there were some things that were found that made people question whether or not that was actually true. Now, this new video that has been released, according to the Texas Tribune, and released as part of a WFAA exclusive in partnership with the Investigative Network, has begun to fuel suspicions that Texas officials had withheld evidence in her arrest and later on death. So now, for years, and I remember covering this back in the day, all we had was the dash cam footage. Now, that was bad enough. Now, in it, I could see that, again, she did nothing wrong, and Encinia was incredibly aggressive towards her. Now, again, we thought that that was the only recording, but no, it turns out that Bland herself had her own recording. And now this is important because it turns out that this recording could ultimately prove the officer was lying when he claimed that he feared for his life. So now I want to show you that. And I will, hold on. I'd like to show you that video. Let's take a look.
Steady reduction.
Get out of the car now.
Why am I being apprehended? You trying to give me a ticket for the failure?
Get out of the car.
Why am I being apprehended? You just opened my car door. You just opened my car door. So you threatening to drag me out of my own car.
Get out of the car.
And then you
I
gonna
will
stun
light
me?
you up. Get out.
Wow.
Now.
Wow.
Get out of the car.
Really, for a failure to signal. You doing all of this for
Get
a failure
over
to
there.
signal. Right, yeah. Yeah, let's take this to court. Let's do
Go
it.
ahead.
For a failure to signal. Yep, for a failure to signal.
Get off the phone.
On my school.
Get off the phone.
I'm not on the phone. I have a right to
Put your
record. This
phone
is my
down.
property. This
Put
is
your
my
phone
property.
down.
Sir?
Put your phone down right now.
All right, so not very long, but she was recording, and that's what she saw. That was basically, I mean, it was kind of chilling, because that's the situation basically from her own perspective, from her own eyes. You're seeing it basically as she saw it. Now, let me ask you, looking at that video, does that look like a guy who was fearing for his life? Or does it look like somebody who was a little bit drunk on their own power? Again, see, Sandra Bland, why she ended up dead is she had committed the one crime that is worse than any other crime when you're a person of color. She disrespected a police officer. She refused to put out her cigarette, which she had before. That's what she had before she started filming, and then refused to get out of her car for what was basically a simple traffic stop. And you saw, he said, I'm going to light you up. He literally threatened to pull out his taser all over basically nothing. So now the question is, why 4 years later are we seeing this video? Why wasn't this released before with the dash cam footage? Well, apparently it had remained in the hands of investigators until the criminal investigation had closed and the investigative network picked it up and published it. So now that's who I give credit for with that, that video. That's why we're seeing it. Nobody else knew that there was video. Not even the family. Not only her, not even her personal lawyer had seen this video during discovery. And that, of course, has the family furious. Understandably so. Bland's family said that they never saw the video before and are now calling for Texas officials to re-examine the criminal case against Brian Encinia. That's the trooper who arrested Bland. Bland's sister, Shantae Needham, said, quote, open up the case, period. It's time to open up the case. Now, the family also alleges that this video was withheld in order to shield the officer, maybe from getting prison time. Needham said that, quote, "We also know that they," meaning the Texas Police Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, says they have an extremely good cover-up system, Needham said. Now, naturally, of course, the Texas Department of Public Safety, their officials, declined it on their interview, said that, oh, no, the video, that was not withheld. They had the video. Oh, really? Now, how come nobody saw it? DPS said in a statement, quote, "The premise that the video was not produced as part of a discovery process is wrong. A hard drive containing copies of 820 gigabytes of data compiled by DPS from its investigation, including the dashcam videos, jail video footage, and data from Sandra Bland's cell phone, was all part of discovery." Okay, well, that's funny because Cannon Lambert, the attorney who represented the Bland family, said, "I never saw the video." He said, quote, "I've not seen it," said Lambert when shown the video by Brian Collister, chief reporter with the Investigative Network. He said, quote, "If I had turned it over, I would have seen it, Brian. I've not seen that." Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because it shows a black woman not doing anything wrong getting harassed by a police officer. And not only harassed, but, threatened. And also asserting her right to film police officers. In no way did that officer seem like he was afraid. If anything, he seemed annoyed. Like, how dare this mouthy N-word not listen to me? How dare she assert her rights? No. This can't stand. I'm going to have to make an example of her. Well, and they did. And by the way, Insignia, look, when it comes to him saying, "Oh no, I was afraid for my life," he's already a proven liar. He committed perjury over this case. And by the way, did not go to prison. He just agreed to never be a cop anymore. That's not justice. You know what? No one involved in this case, whether it come to the person people who were in the jails, who were overseeing the jails, where she allegedly committed suicide, to Insignia, the arresting officer, over something so ridiculous as not signaling a lane change, no one went to jail. Nobody. And that's despite the family, by the way, winning a wrongful death lawsuit. Well, then again, look, winning is not maybe the correct word here. Turns out they settled that case for about $1.9 million. A win maybe would have seen the person who arrested Bland, wrongfully detained her, etc., as well as the jail officials who might have been complicit in her death, get punished as well. Her arrest, you saw it. Was that justified? No. His entire premise of "I was afraid of this small black woman who apparently forgot to use her blinker" is absolutely ridiculous. She had a cell phone. She didn't have a gun. She wasn't reaching for a weapon, which is what they had claimed. Oh, she was reaching for something. We didn't know what it was. The officer didn't know what it was. So obviously, it must be dangerous. No, she was holding a cell phone. You could see it. You could see it. In fact, Lambert said, quote, "He sees exactly what's in her hand. How can you tell me you don't know what's in her hand when you're looking right dead at it? What did she do to make him feel his safety was in jeopardy? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing." So, and as far as the family is concerned, Shantae Needham also added, that video not only shows that Insignia had lied, but he also actually had no business even stopping her. Period. And at the end of the day, he needs to go to jail. Well, you know what? I hope that this does lead to a reopening of the investigation so that we can get this guy off the street. Not only is he off the force, but he should be off the street, and he should be punished for what led to her death. There needs to be real justice for Sandra Bland, and I hope one day we can have it. Okay. One more here. Let me just readjust my video here. Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyone else have that song stuck in your head? I'll talk about looking on the bright side of things. On Monday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had made light of the disastrous effects of climate change, which include the melting of the Arctic, by saying this.
And sea ice are opening new passageways and new opportunities for trade. This could potentially slash the time it takes to travel between Asia and the West by as much as 20 days. Arctic sea lanes could come the 21st century Suez and Panama canals.
So that's just part of his statement. He also said that the Arctic is at the forefront of opportunity and abundance. It houses 13% of the world's undiscovered oil, which of course they're interested in, 30% of its undiscovered gas, an abundance of uranium, rare earth minerals, gold, diamonds, and millions of square miles of untapped resources, and fisheries galore. So, okay. Basically, the planet's melting, but hey, it looks like corporations are going to make an extra buck. So, yay, capitalism. All right. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a disaster. According to the U.S. Global Change Research Program, the loss of Arctic sea ice leads to warmer global water temperatures, which in turn lead to greater sea ice melting. They also note that the loss of ice increases the risk of erosion along coastlines and changes the presence of marine species in certain areas, affecting commercial fish stocks and the economies of some coastal towns. Though, of course, with enough melting, those coastal towns will likely not exist anymore. So I guess there is another bright side. You don't have to worry about the local economy if it's underwater. Now, of course, instead of trying to, mitigate climate change, Pompeo and the Trump administration are basically looking at how they can monetize the melting Arctic. According to CNN, Pompeo's Arctic policy speech largely focused on the threats of Russia and China and at what they posed on the threats they posed and the reasons. He said, "Do we want the Arctic Ocean to transform into the new South China Sea, fraught with militarization and competing territorial claims?" Basically, he also means territorial claims from other nations, not us, because we plan to do that there. See. I guess that puts into perspective the worldview of Mike Pompeo. Who cares about the devastation of the planet? We got to beat the Chinese for all those yummy resources. And let's be honest, that's what this is about. Money, resources, power. The real discussion should be about how we can preserve the delicate ecosystem that we are currently destroying. I mean, the same day that he said these remarks is the same day that the UN released a report that warned that 1 million species were at risk of extinction due to human activity. That human activity includes climate change. In his speech, Pompeo also said that President Trump was committed to leveraging resources but in environmentally responsible ways. He said, quote, "The United States is achieving our reductions the American way, through scientific work, through technology, through building out safe and secure energy infrastructure, and through our economic growth, and doing it in a way that doesn't stifle the development with burdensome regulations that only create more risk to the environment." That statement is a gigantic load of crap. No. We're doing it, but we're doing it the American way by not actually giving a crap about the environment and only caring about the bottom lines of multinational corporations. Well, to be fair, that is the American way. Now, remember, this is the same administration that has attempted repeatedly to prop up coal, which is dying, and had also lifted a bunch of Obama-era regulations on fossil fuels. So, not only that, but they also did their best to try to stifle green energy, which, despite those efforts, is actually becoming better, more efficient, and cheaper than fossil fuel options, especially when you factor in the dangers of climate change. But now, look, I love this, right? I love the part where his solution, part of the solution, was economic growth. No, we're going to economically grow our way out of climate change. That's the solution for everything. You ever notice that? What are you going to do about low-paying jobs? Trump administration? Oh, no, economic growth. Or I should say, not just Trump administration, but right-wingers. What are we going to do about the massive debt from the tax cuts? Oh, don't worry, economic growth. What about climate change? What are we going to do with that? Melting Arctic? Don't worry, economic growth. It's their panacea for everything. It's like the magic bullet for them. Oh no, economic growth. It can do everything. Yes, let's do the thing that puts out more emissions as a way to fight emissions. That doesn't make any sense. Now look, there is one way that economic growth could help if we do it responsibly, right? For example, doing something like a Green New Deal. Now, Green New Deal would have over 1 million extra jobs that could, that are based on basically updating the modern economy and replacing the fossil fuel-based economy with a green energy-based economy, modernizing homes to be more energy efficient. There's lots of jobs and economic growth to be had doing that. But, something tells me that is not the Trump plan. It's an admission, by the way, that they don't actually have a plan. It's other than, of course, make as much money as possible while the planet burns. Okay. That's basically it. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the comments, super chats. Please consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Gotta go. We'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Like and share the stream. And remember, change begins with you. We'll see you guys tomorrow. TYT's next.